Hey neighbor, thanks for clicking on another episode of 7 on Sunday. This week, we're talking about some nasty breakups that happened either during recording or in the aftermath of one hellish album that eventually tore a band apart. Withstanding the temptation to break up long enough to make one more album probably isn't the best move for the sake of sanity, but I see these full band implosions as their own version of The Last Supper, where fans are treated to either a final slice of heaven or a small preview of hell. Every case is different, and sometimes the album is just a symptom of a much larger problem. Were they a natural bookend, or just a messy affair torn apart by hate? Hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and let's find out. Richard Ashcroft became notorious not just for his beloved songwriting, but for his complete inability to not be a hair-splitting dick in the context of the Verve. Urban Hymns and its tour eventually broke up the English band for the second time, and with the guys having just reunited from their previous split, a breakthrough to widespread mainstream attention could not have come at a worse time. Lead guitarist Nick McCabe was originally not a part of the Verve's second coming, but he rejoined the band, they started the recording process for Urban Hymns over, and the problems started where they often do, around the lack of songwriting credit for anyone in the band not named Richard Ashcroft. The LP faced a similar problem that Oasis had that same year on Be Here Now, in the sense that it's bloated, the songs often drag on for way too long, and while I think the Verve win that specific head-to-head battle, they both represented the final hurrah before the death of Britpop. The tour in support of the album went off the rails as McCabe and Ashcroft fought daily. The two got into a heated argument after a June 1998 gig in Germany, resulting in a band-breaking fistfight that saw McCabe quitting, while the rest of the members essentially checked out mentally and phoned in their performances for the rest of the tour obligations. In this case, the album was merely a pawn in a much more complicated game of chess, a game the Verve ultimately lost, not because they made the album or scored some hits from it, more because their leader positioned himself to be the superstar after using his band and the Britpop movement to push Urban Hymns into the mainstream spotlight. You guys ask me pretty often what headphones I use to listen to music, so thankfully for you, I actually use the companies I partner with, and I'm happy to say this video is sponsored by Status Audio. Their Between Pro earbuds quickly became my go-to daily drivers for a few simple but really important reasons. These are the only true Bluetooth wireless triple driver earbuds on the market, meaning unlike your Raycons, AirPods, etc., they have a dedicated driver for bass, mids, and treble, so you get a crystal clear sound that hits with the feeling of 3D. Another reason to love them is the long battery life. The buds themselves have 12 hours of playback, while the carrying case has up to 36 hours, so 48 hours of playback total. Status Audio believes in making audiophile quality products affordable, so much so that you'll get an extra 10% off when you click the link below and use code ARTV at checkout. Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel are incredible talents in their own right, but together, the lifelong friends dating all the way back to elementary school became one of the most successful musical duos of all time. You rarely get to see bands go out on top, but most fans agree that their final records Bookends and Bridge Over Troubled Water are unrivaled folk rock classics. However, Bridge was a tough creative labor due to the new styles they were experimenting with and the rapidly growing tensions between the duo. They were able to acknowledge their differences with a farewell song of sorts, Bye Bye Love, and a swan song of a closer, Song for the Asking, that directly commented on their drifting friendship by offering an olive branch should they record together again. More importantly than anything are the songs themselves, songs that range from the gospel tearjerker Bridge Over Troubled Water to the chirpy tune Cecilia with its pitter-patter percussion, all the way to the weirdly out of place but still not bad Baby Driver, and yes, that's where Edgar Wright got the name for his 2017 film. Simon and Garfunkel never made that sixth album, but the five they gave us gave them plenty of reasons to reunite over the following decades, although at this point, they've been on bad terms for years, and it seems like another reunion is completely off the table.
I'm gonna come to your house on the back of a horse with a bunch of villagers.
Indeed, the joke rockers Bloodhound gang sniffed their way to the number 5 spot because fuck it, I want to talk about this band. The gang popped off in the late 90s with their comical classic The Bad Touch and its successful platinum certified parent album Hooray for Boobies, whose title should make it glaringly obvious what kind of humor they do. Problems began mounting on the back burner for years as frontman Jimmy Pop did his best to keep things together and cool, but the mildly offensive pranksters were pissing away their future, both metaphorically and literally. Seriously, give this one a Google search because the Bloodhound gang have an alarming amount of P-related incidents. For the sake of establishing a timeline, Boobies landed in 99, Hefty Fine came 6 years later, and their final album, Hard Off, limp-dicked in 10 years later after a decade of broken promises and increasingly lame dick, vagina, fart, and sex jokes. Band members came and went, release dates did too. Recording? Oh yeah, they're still recording. Evil Jared pissed on a Ukrainian flag in Ukraine and deservedly made them look shitty. Also, let's reveal the album title twice very slowly over the course of years, getting laid on a school bus or fishing for hookers, but alas no, we weren't that lucky because they changed it one more time. We got nothing but the agonizing Hard Off is the final desperation mating call. Reality is harsh, but that's what Hard Off deserves. This is a truly wretched, unfunny slog of an album that hits like trying to wring out the last few drops of water from a shit-stained mop. After delivering one of the longest-lasting commercial successes of all time in Hotel California, 3 more years passed before the Harmonious Eagles would unleash their at-the-time final album, The Long Run, in 1979. The final product is aggressively mediocre, considering it took more than 2 years to write and record. You don't really get the sparks-flying rhythms that guided the Eagles at their best. Bad omens were in the air, from the lengthy recording process, to the fact that everyone in the band essentially couldn't stand one another, to the writer's block that turned this into a single 43-minute album when it was supposed to be a double album. It's so clear that the inspiration just wasn't there, or maybe, just maybe, the pressure to follow up such a juggernaut was mission impossible. Glenn Frey and Don Felder took I Hate Your Guts to the next level as they bickered often on stage leading up to the album's release, and even more after it. Tempers finally hit a breaking point the following June at a Long Beach, California concert when the two band leaders started threatening each other with physical violence at an event now dubbed Long Night at Wrong Beach. Making an album together became a nuisance rather than a way to move forward, and the tour to promote it only confirmed those sad truths. No one wanted to say it out loud, but this was it, the end of the Eagles until hell freezes over.
Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright.
Journeying through the Beatles' Odyssey is easy thanks to archivists, documentarians, and to put it plainly, a golden discography sitting right in front of us. One of those crown jewels happens to be the last the Fab Four ever made together, Abbey Road, an unadulterated masterpiece worthy of Her Majesty's praise. There's a slightly confusing timeline because of the way the Beatles unraveled, but Abbey Road was their final body of work chronologically. Let It Be came out a year later in 1970, but again, that album was primarily recorded before work on Abbey Road had even begun. Ironically, with this unknowingly being the end of the line for them, the album doesn't even show the slightest trace of conflict. The masterfully woven tracklist pinpoints seamless transitions, and it also features the first ever drum solo from Ringo Starr, and of course the fifth Beatle George Martin took a back-to-basics approach in producing. John Lennon was notoriously negative throughout the writing process, making outlandish demands that would have impacted Abbey Road's legacy had they been met. Recording started in late February 1969, wrapping in August, which sadly marked the last time every Beatle was in the studio at the same time. This will forever stand as one of the greatest musical achievements known to man, which is something the Beatles have in spades, but it's still very impressive. The second half of the LP is a dazzling, non-stop work of art, while the first half scatters in more classics than some bands have in their entire career. One of the most complicated histories in rock belongs to the highly influential Smashing Pumpkins, a somewhat revered, somewhat misunderstood tentpole of alternative rock music. There's two distinct eras of the band, the 90s output, including the Machina albums, and the much more irrelevant era after their breakup and eventual reunion. Frontman Billy Corgan can be extremely difficult to work with thanks to his huge ambitions and monstrous ego, but he was self-aware in that he penned a double album concept album about an imploding rock band as his own ship was sinking. During the exhausting recording process for those back-to-back records, bass player Darcy Wretsky left Smashing Pumpkins despite being credited for each record, putting the rest of the members in a very tricky situation as they tried to complete the sessions without her. Fate seemed unwilling to let the Pumpkins continue on with the classic lineup, so Billy Corgan recognized the writing on the walls by announcing their intention to break up following the internet release of Machina 2 and a farewell show in December 2000. The craziest part of this whole situation is that both of the records are very solid, and personally, I think the second free album might even be better than part 1. Machina 1 and 2 mark a return to form with distorted guitars and sharp lyrics that rank among the best that the Smashing Pumpkins have to offer, and the albums go down smooth despite a very long runtime. 40 years passed before the legendary pop vocal group ABBA returned with their new album Voyage, meaning that for decades, The Visitor was their final album, a glowing testament to their cutting-edge style that you'd never guess was the final work of a four-piece ravaged by a word that I don't think I have ever used to describe a band breakup: divorce! Inside of the Swedish group were two sets of couples. Throughout their successful run, one set remained together for most of it before divorcing in 79, with the other couple marrying in 78 before divorcing in 81, which happens to be the same year The Visitors came out. I'm setting the stage to show how the creation of their 8th album was in many ways a living nightmare. Imagine two sets of exes trying to work together in the studio after more than a decade of constant touring, recording, and getting 2 divorces. Everyone silently knew it was over as the album was being recorded. The producer, the sound engineer, the 4 members themselves, they knew the end was nigh, but they wanted to mine one last diamond from the darkness before ABBA hit their radio silence that lasted for decades starting in 1982. The title track soars with enough charm to knock your socks off, while the triumphant I Let the Music Speak boldly takes to moving on, as does the synth-driven song When All Is Said and Done. But above all else, ripe for debate, I say Head Over Heels is the best song on the album. The production is hypnotic. Before we go our separate ways, don't forget to hit the like button and take to the comments to let me know your thoughts on this episode, and also press subscribe so you get notified when I post future episodes. Thanks again to Status Audio for sponsoring the video. I seriously love my Between Pro earbuds. I use mine pretty much daily, and you can save an extra 10% when you buy yours with code ARTV. I'll see you next time. There's more episodes on screen. Peace.